Hey,
Sounds
welcome to Code Freedom Podcast. We're super excited to have Dr. Katy Chang on the show. And we're going to talk about healing today because it's so important. So, welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we are so excited to have you on. And for those of you who don't know, I was on one of her lives and I was like, oh my God, I love everything that she's saying. So I just had to reach out and I'm so glad that she's agreed to be on. So this is going to be very power packed. So just lock in your seatbelts because she's going to knock your socks off with all the great things that she's going to share with you guys. And so let me just say this, what led you to becoming a mindset and a manifestation coach?
To be honest, my journey started about 10 years ago. And I think it's like how everybody starts their spiritual awakening because they wake up in their adulthood, right? I was 32. I was on top of the world. At least that's what you think you should be. I graduated from UC Irvine, Yale, Johns Hopkins. These are top universities. And I had a doctorate in nursing. And it's great on paper, right? But I was so depressed. Not to mention, I was extremely angry. I had a lot of anger management issues. And I was noticing that my friendships were a revolving door. Like I couldn't keep friendships, and I definitely couldn't keep relationships. And I had to look within as to why I have accumulated all these superficial things, right, on the outside, on paper, that people would think, oh, wow, you're successful, Katy. You have this, big diploma and you're making six figures and you're beautiful and you're thin and this and that. But those are the superficial stuff. It was the inside that was a mess and chaos. And so that began my spiritual journey. And throughout that evolution, I just kind of fell into helping others because people started to see the shift in me and they're like, what are you doing differently? And then one thing led to another, and now I'm a coach.
That's awesome. I love it. And so, like, why do you think a lack of healing is holding so many people back from being their greater selves or achieving great things in their lives?
Because here's the thing, there's a chain of events that happens at the time of a trauma, right? And then at the time of the trauma, people unconsciously aren't aware that they build like a thought or a belief, like usually a victim story from the trauma. And over time, if they keep repeating that victim story, they become that. They now identify as that. And they're going throughout life in this identity of this victim story. And then what they don't realize is their behaviors and their actions reflect that victimization, and they start to sabotage beautiful things that God or the universe are trying to bring in, but they're not conscious of it. So this is why it's so important that we kind of awaken our senses and we become conscious and do the healing work, do the shadow work, so we don't sabotage the great blessings that God's trying to bring to us.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a thermostat. Like, I mean, if you think about it, it's set for one thing, and then if the door is open and hot air is coming in, the air has to bring it back down to that spot where it was supposed to be at, you know? And so we kind of find ourselves in a paradigm, I believe. And I love how you're helping people get through those paradigms. And I believe most of the time it's a paradigm that's we don't even know we're in because we just lived it so long and it just becomes a part of who we are. So how can people break those paradigms?
It's starting with our mindset. So that's why I call myself a mindset and a manifestation coach. Everybody wants to learn how to manifest. I think that's the new age term and it's like the hot thing. But people don't realize that they have to get their mind right because you can manifest money all day. But if your mindset's not right, in how to budget and how to not be a people pleaser and how to say no. That's why lottery winners, about 80% of them, when they win the lottery, they lose it. They go bankrupt because their mind's not right. They haven't actually built the tools to help with the money scarcity, to know that they don't need to keep up with the Joneses, right? So then that's where I come in. I teach them to get their mind right. And the big part is now to actually awaken your senses. And when something happens that kind of gives you a little bit of jolt, we've talked about it on the live stream, right? It shakes you a little bit, it kind of makes you a little uneasy. You're like, huh, what is the unhealed version of me that gets to be healed? I'll say that again. What's the unhealed version of me that gets to be healed? Because why am I being a little shaken up by this bill? What does it mean? And get curious without judging yourself, and then ask yourself, well, what can I change it to mean? Because I'm the creator of my own reality. So can't I create a new reality by redefining what it means?
Oftentimes I'm asked about certain products and things that I use, whether it be for social media content, whether it's exercise equipment that I'm using, or even books that I'm reading. I'll constantly update you. If you want to know some of the things that I use, you can go to the Amazon store at the link below. And I'm happy to share some of those resources that have been very helpful and even life changing. You know, some of the books that I've recommended over the years, I'll put those books in the link, and I'll constantly make sure that I keep that updated for you. So take advantage of it, and I hope you enjoy. You have a book that you wrote called The Coach's Guide to Living Mindfully and Authentically. And you
Right?
talk about the tier formula. So I would love it if you just tell us more about that.
Let me see. I don't even remember which chapter I'm on. It's so small for your readers, or for your listeners. But the tier effect is an acronym that I came up with. It's TEAR, and it stands for a chain of events. And people, again, are unconscious to this pattern. And I want them to be conscious of it so they can start to see, oh my gosh, I need to stop it at this part. And so the T, right? There's actually a T before the T. It's the trigger. It's the event. It's something that causes a stimuli, right? So let's just say, again, the bill. You get flagged by a $10,000 credit card bill and you're like, oh, shoot, how am I going to pay this? I don't have 10,000 in the bank. Your thoughts run wild and you start to think, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. I can't pay this. Like we're screwed, and now it's gonna be 29% on the interest for the credit card. It's just running amok. And then emotionally, you're starting to stress out. You're starting to be in fear and lack. And that frequency is sent out to the universe, which, hey, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. So you have to be in check with your frequency, your thoughts, and your emotions. But very soon, if you can't regulate your emotions, what are you going to do? You're going to act probably from a low vibrational state, probably something that you don't want to be doing, right? So maybe you may act out. And I gave the example that if you were triggered and you can't regulate your emotions, you're driving, you're driving a little recklessly. What's going to be the reality or the outcome if you drive recklessly, if you can't regulate your emotions? So we really need to understand the tier effect and really bite the bullet, right? Or get ahead of it. I was trying to think of how to a better way of explaining it, but we really got to get ahead of it by stopping it at the trigger, right? The triggering event, because once the outcome happens, it's kind of like hard to reverse back. So that's really what this book is about.
So it starts with the trigger, and then the second T is, what is it?
Your thoughts. So
Thought.
obviously, when you get triggered, you're gonna have like this thought, like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna pay this bill? Like, I'm stressed. I better go ask my boss for extra duty. I better work a second job. I better go find another way of blah, 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 blah. It's going wild. And
Right.
then because it's going wild, then your emotions, your heart's racing, your blood pressure's elevated, right? You're breathing more shallow because you're emotionally stressed out. You're anxious. You're maybe even a little scared.
And from there, the emotion leads to some kind of an action, and then you
Or a
get,
decision, yeah, on how to behave. Or maybe you might even be the type that freezes. You don't do anything,
yeah.
right? And
And inaction is action.
exactly. And that's the other people thing that people don't realize is that's where we were talking about. This is why it's so important to do your healing, right? And to get really curious about yourself without judgment and watch your behaviors and your identities, right? Because the thing is that sometimes we get so debilitated with hopelessness that we're like, oh, well, it's better to just stay status quo and not do anything. But we don't realize we're not doing anything because we fear that if we do something, we might fail. But that's again, it's a self-sabotaging pattern. Where did you learn that you're a failure?
And there's so many emotions that people have as they go through these journeys, and the emotions lead to action, and then it ends up leading to a result. So if we want to change all that, I think the most important thing, as you mentioned, is the trigger. I've often heard people talk about the thought and then the emotion, the action, and then the result. But I've never really heard anyone kind of put that trigger word in there. And the trigger is important because the trigger is what causes a thought to happen.
Exactly. And it's so easy to explain the big triggers that piss us off, right? That gets us angry and explosive. But you know what's super dangerous is the micro triggers that we have every day. I woke up today and I didn't have the best of sleep. I probably think I had a little bit of caffeine too late at night, tossing and turning, and my mind wanted to run and be like, oh, I have such a long day. I have this 10 a.m. podcast, and then I have 11 o'clock Zoom, and then my heater is broken. And I started to get into a low vibrational state, right? And I was like, no, we can't be starting our Wednesday on a low vibe. We gotta, if it's low vibe and I'm letting my emotions and my thoughts run amok, then my rest of my day is going to be spoiled. No, we're starting a high vibe. How blessed and honored are you invited to Eddie's podcast? How blessed and honored do you get to be in a group Zoom call later today? You know, like blessing upon blessings. And that
Absolutely.
starts with the trigger. But the trigger today was, hey, you didn't sleep so well. You got a little less hours of sleep. But I stopped that chain of events by changing my thoughts. And I get to create my own thoughts. I'm the creator of my own reality. So create a new reality with new thoughts.
That's so good. I love it so much. Thank you. Thoughts are things. And so tell us about maybe a client that you've had that you worked with and you've seen some great success with, just so we can kind of hear the transformation that you've been able to help people with.
Wow. Everybody wants to learn how to manifest money, right? But here's the thing, money and wealth doesn't matter if you don't have health. So I have a client, and she's actually, if you scroll down on my TikTok, there's a client testimonial. Um, and basically, all I taught her was to get ahead of the trigger and then control her thoughts. That's the beginning part because people don't realize your thoughts are energy. Same with your emotions. You're sending this frequency out to the world, and this is, if it's low vibrational, it's going to attract back low vibrational people, places, and opportunities. This is why they say the law of threes, bad things happen in threes. Well, that's because you're attracting it, right? But the other thing is that, you know, and this is why you were saying, oh, why is healing so important? It's not just about self-sabotaging, but here's something that people don't realize. At the time of an event, when you get the trauma, okay, when there's the traumatic experience, you're supposed to release that energy. But people, because they're so in their victim stories, they're playing out the victimization of the abandonment for 10, 20 years. But what does abandonment feel like? It feels sad. It feels heavy. But that's an emotion that's now trapped in your body. And over time, it becomes disease. It creates illness in our body. And so I try to teach people to get ahead of it, but they don't realize they're actually changing their frequency and their vibration and releasing the pain of the past. And so this client, all she was doing was changing the thoughts, breaking the pattern, breaking the thoughts, breaking the pattern, breaking the thoughts, elevating her focus, elevating her energy. And through time, she's emotionally purging. And it literally, I couldn't have paid her to say this. It was on a Zoom call. And she was sharing it in the group, and I have it on recording and it's on the TikTok live. She says, Katy, I went to my endocrinologist today. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I had 5 different medications, and I kid you not, he says your blood sugars are good. We could stop the medications.
Amazing.
Yeah, and she had a 2-year timeline, and she, of course, was doing the exercise and she was eating, but her blood sugars weren't changing. And then she met me, and then within a span of I think like 2 or 3 months, all she's doing is raising. She didn't even realize she's thinking she's doing the inner work, right? Because she also was, wanting to better herself. But you're literally raising your vibration, raising your vibration, raise your vibration. When you're in a high frequency of 500 hertz and your emotions have a frequency, disease, illness, mental illness can't exist. It does not exist. And so here she is no longer on those heavy medications.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, really, health is wealth. So, what's the point of having the money if you're sick all the time? You
I
know?
think that would be my biggest success story. Now, do I have clients who manifested $20,000 in 1 month? Yeah, of course. I have people manifesting money left and right, their dream jobs. But what's the point of manifesting money if you have type 2 diabetes, you're on 5 different medications, or you have these other illnesses that are making you sick, hospitalized?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to get that in check for sure. Who are some of the mentors and influencers that have helped you get to where you are?
Oh, one of my biggest mentors, and I have so much thanks. I actually wrote it in the um, beginning of the chapter that I gave thanks to my mentor, Mandy Morris, and her husband, Oliver Nino. So Mandy actually works on the mindset, the manifestation part, and her husband, Oliver Nino, is called the spiritual activator. He works on the energy part. So I merged both of their best worlds and I became one.
Nice, nice. And you were recognized as a top 10 mindset and motivational, not motivational, manifestation coaches.
Correct. So actually, an article was published about 2 weeks ago. I have to look at the date. I think it was 2 Fridays ago in MSN. It was the top 10 female coaches making an impact in 2024. And I was featured as number 8.
That is incredible. Congratulations. That's exciting. And it's got to feel good knowing that you're helping people, but you're also being very purposeful because you're just doing what was working for you, and now you're helping other people to be able to do it and liberate people in their lives.
Correct. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So that's awesome. So some other things I would ask is like, what are some challenges that you might have faced as it relates to mindset and manifestation that you've been able to somehow overcome? But I guess my big question is, like when people have these triggers, what's some of the easiest things people can do to raise their vibration? Because we hear that word a lot lately. How can people get on a high vibration?
Well, we talked about this on the live stream. So, I gave them 3 examples, right? You could do something spiritual, physical, or mental. And I had everybody do this exercise in real time to write something, not that they think that will work for them, because if you've never done yoga, don't write yoga, but things that that actually help you raise your vibration. Think about the things that make you happy. So if you like going out for a walk, write it down. If you like going and playing soccer or pickleball, I think pickleball is a big thing that people like enjoy these days, right? Write those things down, like 5 things that could actually physically move the emotion. Remember, emotion's energy, and emotion is just energy in motion. It's meant to be released. So what can we do to release that emotion physically? And then I told them to think about something mental, like listening to this podcast. That's a mental break from the stressors of your life. You're learning, you're hearing. And even through here, can you feel the impact of my energy? I actually had to meditate before this, actually, shake off my sleepless night, right? Because I wanted to bring high energy to you guys so that anybody who's listening to the podcast, they could feel my energy. So listening to podcasts, feeling that vibration, changing and shifting your daily routine, right? By inserting a podcast or a YouTube that raises your vibration, learning, and then something spiritual, meditation, journaling, right? Reading, whatever gets you into a different frequency mindset, because it's really about breaking that pattern. So those are the 3 different options to raise their vibration. And I think I also wrote it in this book, is to catch yourself when you're noticing that you're spiraling out of control. Stop and interrupt the pattern by doing one of these three things. So I also have a fun acronym, CSI: catch, stop, and interrupt the pattern. And then do something. I don't even care if you shake your body, you dance, do a little twerking, whatever gets you laughing, right? Like I can't twerk. So it's hilarious when I look at myself in the mirror. I was like, this butt does not jiggle. So right? But it's fun to break up that flow because I'm sitting at my desk, right? I could be triggered by my boss or whatever. But if I say, okay, I'm going to excuse myself, go to the restroom and do a silly little dance, watch myself in the mirror, I'm good. I shook it up and then go back.
I think we all know that readers are leaders. And if you want to become better, we got to get better. And in order to do that, we got to get information, access to information that we just don't have. And so maybe you're not the type of person that has the time to kind of sit down and read a book. You're always on the go. Listen, I have something special for you. If you go to the description down below, there is a link where you can get a free Audible account for 30 days. And you can listen while you're in the car. We call it Drive Time University, where you can, when your hands are busy but your mind is free, you can pour into your mind and get personal development and self-growth. You can almost get what I call a degree in the car, if that makes sense, by plugging into all the great information out there through Audible. So go to audibletrial.com/code freedom and you can get a free 30-day account with Audible. I think the biggest thing is the awareness, because it's happening to us all the time. But if we're not aware that it's happening, then we don't know how to stop it. So then we end up going in a bad spiraling direction that's not going to serve us if we just be aware, just be more mindful and be more aware of what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, and we'll get ready to kind of land the plane. But for me personally, when I try to meditate in the past, and I meditate often, but sometimes I get like I'm one that's kind of a night owl. So I stay up late sometimes, and it's so when I meditate, sometimes I fall asleep. So what would you say to kind of help that to kind of be able to stay in that state of meditation without falling asleep?
Well,
Anything on?
here's the thing. I actually fell asleep last night too, using sacred geometry and trying to do a healing on myself. And you could. I used to think it was a bad thing, right? And you'll hear some people. It depends on like if you're following Joe Dispenza. Obviously, we want to get you to a different frequency of the brain so that it actually releases in the quantum field. So he believes in heart and a brain and heart coherence. So there's different reasons and benefits, right? And it depends on your intention. But now as I'm starting to evolve and understand, meditation and healing, when you set the intention in the beginning, that's why, I kind of ask all my clients like, hey, what's your intention for doing energy clearing? And then I do the clearing, regardless that you fell asleep, the intention behind it is actually the motivating, like healing mechanism. It's not all the woo-woo stuff that I'm doing, right? And same with the meditation. What was your intention behind meditating? You have to trust in the higher spirits, higher guides, higher planes, that it's working while you're asleep. Because have you ever heard about astral traveling and healing while you're asleep? It's possible. And I think one of the best things is if you were starting to meditate and you started to sleep and you dozed off, that's the best because you set the intention that you wanted to clear and get rest. And now you cleared the space to have a beautiful night's sleep of 8 or 9 hours and then do healing while you're asleep. So it's not a bad thing. We have to
Yeah.
change the narrative,
Yeah,
right?
that's so true because they say you should meditate before you go to sleep because your subconscious is still awake while your conscious is sleeping, so I can see that for sure.
It's just so interesting because I had a client over the weekend and I just had to tell her, I was like, what's right or wrong? Who defined that?
Yeah.
Right? That's humanistic. And then again, if we're the creator of our reality, can't we just redefine things? And so I used to also think like, stay awake, stay awake. Okay, maybe you should get out of bed and then sit up and then meditate and then go to bed. Like don't meditate in your bed. But again, I'm the creator of my own reality. It's not a bad thing unless I actually want to be so hyper focused on the bad. But how's that going to benefit me in the morning?
Yeah. And I love that you combine science and spirituality into everything that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about how that works in terms of the science side of things as it relates to healing and manifestation. Like I know
Mm.
you talked about, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was like, without getting too heavy, because it's like so deep, there's so many layers. Um, but all you need to know is that your brain, and your heart have frequencies. And so these, if you ever seen somebody connected, they have like EEGs. Um, and so it actually has a brain pattern. And the interesting thing is what they actually studied your brain pattern under stress, under focus, while sleeping, while meditating. And it looks a little different. Same with on CT scans. And obviously you can imagine if you're like meditating, what does a CT scan look like versus the EEG, what does the waves look like, right? And it's usually more stable and there's more blue. When you're under a lot of stress, there's a lot of red and there's a lot of orange. And this is going to be the leading cause of early onset Alzheimer's and dementia. So, but if you think about it, the fact that we could even measure the brain waves, right? What our goal is when we actually go through meditation or when we try to raise our vibration by doing something that makes us happy, is we're trying to regulate those brain waves so it's more blue states rather than stress of red and orange states that are going to lead us down a terrible future of mental illness and disease. So that's really just one part. But like, if you also understand quantum physics and you start to study it, everything's particles, everything's electrons, everything's moving, everything's energy. So these brain waves are actually energy being sent out to the quantum field. Now, the cooler thing is MIT discovered that your heart has what we know, a heartbeat, but it has a frequency too. And I think they called it the EQ, so for emotional quotient radio test. And then that has a frequency. So this is why I was saying, if you don't get your emotions in check, you're angry, that's sending frequency and another pattern to the quantum field. And we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. So if we're angry, we're stressed out, this is all coming back at us. More things that to stress us out, right? Like
Absolutely.
get a flat tire on top of the $10,000 credit card bill, And the funny thing is, can I just tell you a quick story?
For sure.
This past week, so my AC is broken, right? In a heat wave of, I don't know when this is published, but today is July 2024. And so in this heat wave of 90 degrees in Southern California, my AC unit's broken. But the same week, my security cameras broke because of the heat and it degraded the wire. And then my juicer broke. So we're looking at like maybe 10 grand and things that broke. And so all of these things, right, that could easily trigger me. And then I wasn't even joking about that credit card bill. It was like 6,000. I got, it's not 10,000, but it's 6,000. So I'm seeing all of these things, but I'm the mindset manifestation coach. So I stopped it at the trigger. But I think if anybody else, they would be so explosive and just pissed off and angry, and then more of that's going to come. But I know that, hey, if I regulate my emotions and I just lean into everything, money's going to flow. Like I played this game a lot. And, like you showed up to ask me for a podcast. I booked a few sessions for energy clearing. I'm doing a group Zoom in a little bit. I mean, so all of a sudden, was I not right? Money's flowing. Opportunities are coming because I chose to keep that vibration high rather than be stuck in the low vibration of the bills and the things that are breaking.
So awesome. Just the other day, I was in a bad space myself. I had a trigger, and I just went to go play basketball because that's kind of like my happy place. And it was fun. And I could feel myself raising my own vibrations, playing music and things like that is always a good thing too. But I just love the whole conversation about this because, like they say, when you put your hand under a microscope, it's got particles that are moving. We're not just a finite thing, but we're an infinite thing, right? And then they say when you hook up people to those machines, if you were to have them close their eyes and run a race in their mind, the same muscles fire up and all the things that would fire up as if they were actually doing it it's happening, you know. So once we start to understand ourselves better, now we can guide ourselves in the right direction.
Exactly. And then I'm so curious, I'm going to be asking you a question. I know this is your podcast, but after you play basketball, what happened when you got home? I'm just curious. In the next 24 to 48 hours, did you manifest?
Well,
Big or
uh, I have to think about that. That's a good question. I definitely felt better for sure. Um, I can't say yet that something has manifested. This was actually just yesterday, now that I think about it.
what
So it's still in the works, I would say.
are you talking about? Hello? I
There we
said
go. Yeah, that is a
yes.
good one. There you go. That's it right there. And that's the thing. Sometimes we miss the things that are happening that are good in our lives, and we don't even catch. We don't put the energy that it needs. Right. So
hmm
I'm
We,
grateful
we,
that you're here.
we're thinking that it has to be a big manifestation, that it's like $1,000 or $1 million or something like that. But that's what I'm saying. It's like understanding everything's a manifestation. Even me saying yes, I was available.
Yeah.
Like in a week and a half, I'm going to be very busy and I'm going to go back to work and I won't be available.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Absolutely. And I'm
out.
very grateful. So I'm definitely excited that you did say yes. So, I want more of the listeners to be able to reach out to you because you got some amazing stuff. You give a great content. I want them to get your book. So, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, they could find me at all my social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, and definitely TikTok. I'm biggest on TikTok at Dr. Katy Chang. So that's DrKaty, like Katy Perry, Dr. Katy Chang, Chang. And then if they wanted to email me, it's Katy Chang at drkatychang.com. So that's Katy, like Katy Perry, Chang, Chang, at drkatychang.com.
Sounds good. And we'll put that in the show notes down below as well. So you guys can just click on it and go right to her page and everything. So, any last comments or anything last that you want to say to the audience regarding healing or anything that we talked about?
Yeah, you could be, you could do, and you could have just anything you want. You truly are the creator of your own reality. So create your own reality.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Eddie.